How many are for ABRT? AV and RT. Only two people are for AV and RT. Okay, the hands are going up now. Okay, last. So this is the after this. So you can see here, this patient, if you can see here, there is a pseudo RVS. So the lead V1 is very, very important. In patient with sinus and SVRT, patient with AVNRT or ABRT, so always you should see for the lead V1. So same thing is repeated. Thank you for the kind hearing. Pardon? Ivabradine, no. Sinus tachycardia, there is no. As officially, ACC and AHA has not recommended ivabradine unless the patient has got a comorbid condition. Otherwise, you have to use either beta blockers or calcium channel blockers.
Thank you, sir. I now request Dr. Mohammad Ashraf, Associate Professor of Medicine, Fatehpur Medical College, to hand over a certificate of appreciation to Dr. Prabhakar. Next, we have a talk by Dr. Yusuf Kumble from Indiana Hospital. He is the Chief Interventional Cardiologist. He will be speaking on broad complex tachycardia.
Good evening, everybody. And after a beautiful and elaborative session on narrow QRS tachycardia, I think wide QRS tachycardia is very simple. You don't have to spend much time on it. QRS, if it is wide, it is more than 120 milliseconds, it is a wide QRS tachycardia. And the heart rate is more than 100, it is a tachycardia. So whatever it is not narrow QRS tachycardia, that is wide QRS tachycardia. So what is how does it make a difference whether it is a narrow QRS or wide QRS? And if it is a wide QRS, how will you manage differently from a narrow QRS? That is what is the point. So I will tell you, all postgraduates, for all your practical purposes, if you see a wide QRS tachycardia and you think it could be it could be a supraventricular tachycardia or ventricular tachycardia. That is the confusion you are almost always having. So for all practical purposes, you can take it as a ventricular tachycardia unless proved otherwise. Why this statement, blanket statement? Because if you treat a ventricular tachycardia thinking that it is a supraventricular tachycardia, you are in trouble. Okay. But you treat a supraventricular tachycardia thinking that it is a ventricular tachycardia, you are not in trouble. So you don't have to think too much, and a simple and straightforward diagnosis is all wide QRS tachycardias are ventricular tachycardias unless proved otherwise. And you have certain clinical clues. If a patient is elderly man, diabetic, history of IHD, and you are suspecting an IHD in a scenario of ventricular ischemic heart disease, myocardial infarction, in a scenario of structural heart disease, that dilated cardiomyopathy, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, all this scenario, 99% you are right, is a ventricular tachycardia. So there are situations where you may be confused with supraventricular tachycardia with ventricular tachycardia if there is a wide QRS tachycardia. So of course you may have to identify this after you managing the patient. When the patient is sick, the patient is having no BP and the patient is collapsing, oh, this is that, okay, this is RSR dash pattern, this is SSR pattern, and this is that, you take a scale and measure it. Not at all required. Nothing is required. You give DC shock or you give appropriate antiarrhythmic and manage the patient. Later in the evening, take the ECG and then you can aramse sit and diagnose whether what type of arrhythmia it was. So before coming to the wide QRS, of course, you should know some basics of premature complexes. Like most of you know that what is ventricular premature complex, and most of this wide QRS tachycardia may start with VPCs or PVCs. And you know VPCs are in relation to the expected beat of the basic rhythm. that is premature it is. It is not in the regular interval, it is premature, and the QRS is widened. There are STT changes, and there can be a compensatory pause, and that can be a retrograde PVF. That is the usual standard VPCs or PVCs definition. So, if you see a VPC like this, okay, it is a wide enough and there are STT changes, there is a retrograde P wave and it is early in premature complex. So, there are different type of ventricular complexes will be there, and for clinical purpose there is no big clinical difference if you identify, okay, I am dealing with unifocal or couplet or bigeminy. Of course, there are, but in clinical practice not much. If you see there is a fixed couplet in interval, then you can call it as a unifocal, or it could be a multifocal like this, a varying morphology. And unifocal need not be unimorphology, it can be varying morphology also. This is the couplet and triplet. Before we go to ventricular tachycardia, whenever you see more than 3 wide QRS complexes, more than 3 wide VPCs, you can call it as ventricular triplet. This is a monomorphic triplet. And in your practice, most of the arrhythmia you see is ventricular bigeminy. And it is, by and large, it is a benign arrhythmia and nothing much to worry about it. But you have to look for the underlying cause in some cases. So, this is nothing but a normal sinus rhythm followed by a VPC. This is a negative complex, same VPC. I do not want to talk about parasystole. I will go to fusion and capture complex. So, you know, whenever you diagnose a ventricular tachycardia, you should know what is capture beat, what is fusion beat. Capture beat is nothing but it captures in between the tachycardia. So, it is a normal sinus complex, it captures in between. If that capture beat is there, that may be suggestive of ventricular tachycardia. And fusion beat is nothing but when the atrial rhythm comes, activity comes, and the ventricular activity also comes simultaneously. So, it both of them fuses together. So, that complex will be like this. You can see here something like in between the sinus rhythm and in between the VPC, the complex like this. So, neither suggestive of a normal sinus rhythm nor suggestive of a QRS tachycardia rhythm. That is called fusion beat. And there is another rhythm called ventricular escape rhythm. You know, our previous speaker said whenever there is a complete heart block, there can be a ventricular escape rhythm. This is also a sort of wide QRS. You can call it as a tachycardia sometimes, because whenever it is more than 60, you can call it as accelerated idioventricular rhythm. So, accelerated idioventricular rhythm is also a wide QRS tachycardia. The most common condition is whenever you thrombolyze your patient after MI, you can see an accelerated idioventricular rhythm, because the rate is maybe 60 or 100 and it is a wide QRS and rhythm is regular, and the ventricular rate is usually either very slow or very fast. This is a very slow heart rate. You can see a QRS complex which is wide and regular, but the rate is about 60-70 here. This is also a wide QRS tachycardia, but the rate is less than 100 here. But this is the same rhythm only, but here the rate is more than 100. This is also a wide QRS tachycardia. So, wide QRS tachycardias could be an accelerated idioventricular rhythm, or it could be a just supraventricular tachycardia, or it could be a proper ventricular tachycardia. So, how will you differentiate? There are so many points, you know, every time we discuss that, this and always confusing. Really certain points, very important points, whenever there is an AV dissociation. In the tachycardia, if you can see, identify an AV dissociation, well and good. That is more suggestive of a ventricular tachycardia. Absence of AV dissociation does not rule out ventricular tachycardia. Whenever there is an AV dissociation, fine. Your diagnosis is more towards ventricular tachycardia. And this fusion beat and capture beat is also suggestive of ventricular tachycardia. And left axis deviation is suggestive of ventricular tachycardia, and concordant R wave in progression pattern, concordant pattern in all chest leads V1 to V6 suggestive of ventricular tachycardia, and absence of RS complex in any precordial leads. This is very important. And if you test all the precordial leads, RS will not be there. If that is so, that is suggestive of a ventricular tachycardia. Of course, if you can always, as Dr. Prabhakar mentioned, you have to start with normal ECG. If you have a normal ECG, you compare that. If your tachycardia is initiation with the premature P wave, that is suggestive of supraventricular tachycardia, and if it is started with a VPC, suggestive of ventricular tachycardia. Similar to that, QRS complex is identical to those in the normal ECG, QRS complex of V1, V2 and all. If it is similar to the tachycardia ECG, then that is suggestive of SVT. But the tachycardia beats are identical to the VPCs in the sinus rhythm. The normal ECG is the VPC, but tachycardia is similar to that, that is suggestive of VT. And QRS, these things you don't consider because it looks a lot of confusion here. And you can go to QRS duration of more than 140 milliseconds, suggestive of ventricular tachycardia. So clinically, whenever you get a patient with a ECG of wide QRS tachycardia, first thing what you are looking at is there should be an algorithm. How will you diagnose supraventricular versus ventricular tachycardia? And little bit, see, first thing what you have to see is whether it is regular or irregular. First thing is regular or irregular. If it is irregular, most of the time it is not a VT. Most of the time. Rarely polymorphic VT or TOS, this can be irregular, but most of the time it is not VT. So what it could be? It could be an atrial fibrillation with a aberrant conduction, or an atrial flutter or an atrial tachycardia, or any other supraventricular tachycardia with a varying conduction with antegrade conduction. So a SVT with aberrancy or an atrial fibrillation or SVT with varying conduction with an aberrant conduction, that is basically it is an irregular rhythm, either an atrial fibrillation or an SVT with varying blocks which is going to the abnormal pathway. If it is regular, then you can do the Waggle maneuvers as Dr. Prabhakar mentioned, and if it is responding is good. Otherwise, you have to see whether this in QRS is identical to that during sinus rhythm. If it is yes, it could be an SVT or it could be an antidromic AVRT. That is again what he said, this aberrant conduction. If it is identical, or the previous any structural heart disease is there, that could be suggestive of VT. So a patient is having a regular wide QRS tachycardia, you see the ordinary first ECG. If that ECG QRS and tachycardia ECG is similar to that, then it is suggestive of SVT rather than VT. Next thing you have to look for that one AV relations, either a VA association or an AV association, VA dissociation. If there is an association, there is a dissociation, there is no relationship with atrial and ventricular, or AV dissociation is there, most of the time it is VT. If there is an AV dissociation, it is most of the time VT, but in rare condition atria rate can be faster than ventricular rate, that you don't have to really put much your brain on that. You come to this. If you are not able to understand whether AV dissociation is there or not, and wide QRS tachycardia which is regular and the normal ECG is not there, or you are confused, then your QRS morphology will determine whether there is a VT or SVT. If QRS morphology is typical of RBBB or typical of LBBB, most of the times you are dealing with SVT. If an abnormal RBBB pattern is there or an abnormal LBBB pattern is there, most of the time you are dealing with VT. I think this is the pattern what is mentioned here, it is, you have to really go through it in detail to know what is this abnormal LBBB pattern, which is R in V1 longer than 30 milliseconds and R to another ratio of S1 in V1 is greater than 60 milliseconds. So I am not going to detail of that. Ventricular tachycardia, if it is a ventricular tachycardia, there are two types of ventricular tachycardia, one is sustained, one is non-sustained. You know, by definition sustained is more than 30 seconds and non-sustained is less than 30 seconds. And ECG characteristic of VT, most of you know, that is a wide QRS with the secondary STD changes. At least 3 complexes should be there in succession and the rate should be more than 100. Rhythm is 5 more minutes. Rhythm is regular, most of the time regular. Abrupt onset and termination, sudden onset and termination. AV dissociation is very classical. Capture beats may occur, fusion beat may occur. So these are the characteristic of ventricular tachycardia. So most out of this, most characteristic is wide QRS more than 140 millisecond, left axis deviation, AV dissociation and regular rhythm. Capture and fusion beat may occur and abrupt onset and termination you may not able to identify from ECG. So abnormal wide QRS, secondary STD changes, ventricular rate more than 100, rhythm is regular, usually between 140 to 200, occasionally 120. This is the classical non-sustained repetitivity. You can see there, this is a more than 3 in succession, also it is a sustained and non-sustained this is, but it is repetitive. It is a repetitive, it is coming and going. And this is non-sustained ventricular tachycardia. It is not repetitive. This is a sustained ventricular tachycardia. So you can see V1 to V6, all QRS morphology are concurrent pattern suggestive of ventricular tachycardia. Here you can see this QRS and this QRS, this up QRS, down QRS, up QRS, down QRS. This is a bidirectional VT. Usually we can see in digoxin toxicity and other toxicity. This is after one patient was on treadmill, after that he developed a VT like this. You can see this is a LBBB type of VT. This is a QRS pattern in V6. LBBB type of VT with inferior axis. This is a classical of RVOT VT. Whenever a patient do exercise, TMT, suddenly develop VT, this is an RVOT VT, usually that LBBB type of VT with inferior axis. The treatment of choice is beta blocker and very good, it is responding to RF ablation. Just opposite of that is a RBBB type of VT with the left axis deviation. You can see the RBBB type here, RBBB type and left axis deviation. This is the fascicular VT. This is called fascicular VT and this is also easily can be ablated. Here is a irregular VT. Can you see irregular QRS tachycardia? Is an irregular QRS tachycardia suggestive of AF with aberrant conduction, that is in antidromic conductions. Here it is a polymorphic VT. It is also an irregular VT. These are two irregular QRS tachycardia. One is SVT, other one is VT. You can see this is SVT, this is polymorphic VT. Both are irregular. So polymorphic VT, you know the commonest cause is acute ischemia or an electrolyte imbalance, and the abnormal wide QRS with the secondary STD changes just like other VT, but the rate is faster than the usual ventricular rate, usual monomorphic VT, and this is the one VT which is irregular. 2 or more cycles of QRS complex with alternating polarity will be there, and this is the classical polymorphic VT and ends up in towards T point. So this is the brief outline about wide QRS tachycardia. What I said is wide QRS tachycardia could be due to a supraventricular tachycardia or a ventricular tachycardia for accelerated ventricular rhythm, or monomorphic or polymorphic. If it is polymorphic, it will be irregular. If it is irregular, usually you rule out ventricular tachycardia and you usually think of atrial fibrillation or SVT with aberrant conduction. But Most important is clinical scenario. Whenever a patient is having ischemic heart disease, myocardial infarction, structural heart disease, by default, all wide QRS tachycardias are considered as ventricular tachycardia. What is important is treatment, you have to immediately respond, otherwise it may turn up into ventricular fibrillation. So you have to plan your treatment, immediately start treatment as ventricular tachycardia, and then later you compare with the normal sinus rhythm ECG, then you can come to a conclusion whether it is a SVT or it is a ventricular tachycardia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I request Dr. Roshan M., Professor of Medicine, Father Mullah Medical College, to present Dr. Yusuf Kumble with a certificate of appreciation for his talk. Next, I invite Dr. Krishna Shetty, Interventional Cardiologist from Yenapoya Hospital, to talk on the subject atrial fibrillation and flutter.
Good evening, everybody. I think by now it's almost 3 hours of ECG. Most of you would have been saturated, and it will be boring. My topic will be atrial fibrillation and atrial flutter. I'll be showing few ECGs and discussing on that. I'll just mention atrial fibrillation. I'm not going to discuss in detail about the theoretical aspect of it, but for technical reasons, I'll tell by definition, atrial fibrillation, the rate is 350 to 600, and atrial flutter is 250 to 350. And the basic ECG changes, what you get in atrial fibrillation is you will have an absent P waves and irregular RR intervals and an undulating baseline. These things will be usually seen in an atrial fibrillation. Now this is an ECG. These are hypothetical clinical scenarios taken from textbooks. There are not much clinical details of the patient. What is there is on the slide. It is a 76-year-old man who has come with breathlessness. This is his ECG. Now we'll have to make a diagnosis on this, what it is. Now I don't know the blood pressure or the clinical scenario, whether he is a diabetic or a hypertension, what is his LV function. What would be our diagnosis and what would be